Hi everyone. It's been a little while. I don't know if you can tell or not, but my voice isn't quite what it usually is. Got a little cold going. It's always fun. Figured I would hop on and discuss the AL Central. Something to look forward to for each team upcoming season. We'll get the elephant in the room out of here real quick, starting with the Chicago White Sox. The storyline, we'll say, is will they be as bad as last year? That's the question. I think it's a relative question, obviously. Subjective. It's objective, but subjective at the same time, if that makes sense. I think objectively, I don't know how they can lose more games. Technically, they could. I don't see it, though. I think they'll win, we'll just say 50. I think that's terrible enough, but not historically bad like they were this past year. In terms of players, there's not much. There's Luis Robert. I would assume he'll be traded at some point this season, but up until then, there's at least him to look forward to. Then you got the prospects. Like, I don't see too much to even discuss there. On the major league team, that is. Prospect-wise, there's Edgar Caro, catcher, Kyle Teal, catcher, Colson Montgomery. They list him as a shortstop, though he's kind of more in that third base build, kind of slow, doesn't move that well laterally. There's questions about his hitting. Who else is there? Oh, and then the pitchers. Yeah, so that's... Oh, and so I'll get to the pitchers and then the other position player. Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, lefties. They're awesome. Go watch them if you haven't watched them yet. I'm not sure what level they'll be at. Maybe AA. Montgomery, I think that's their... No. It's Birmingham. Yeah, that's right. Caught myself there. Montgomery is Tampa. Sorry. I knew it was somewhere in Alabama. Whatever. Anyway, getting back on track there. So Schultz is the tall one. Smith is, in my opinion, a little nastier for what I've seen, but I think they'll both be solid, if not awesome, in the majors. Then there's Braden Montgomery, who hasn't played in the majors yet because he got hurt at the end of... he went to A&M, right? Their season last year. There's so much baseball. There's so much going on in the world. You have work. You have a kid. I mean, if you get that, you know what I'm talking about. So, outfielder, athletic, can hit, can field, should be fun. A little like Luis Robert, in theory at least. So there's five guys, to be excited about, prospect-wise. I'm sure there are others. They still have some pitchers that have probably come through a bit too soon. But yeah, that's enough of them. We're at almost 4 minutes. So enough of that. The four relevant teams. All right. Which one shall we start with? Let's start with Cleveland, since they're first on the page and they won the division. On my notes, I have them... This is to the shock of no one. I ranked some of the aspects of the team. So I did bullpen, rotation, prospects, and lineup. I had them second in prospects, tied with Minnesota. Could probably debate that. I had Cleveland first, though. So if I had to pick, I'd pick Cleveland out of the two. I had them third lineup-wise, and I had them fourth with rotation, although that's mainly because Shane Bieber's injured right now. And then obviously number one for bullpen. I don't think their lineup is terrible. I had them third. I think they could be better than Kansas City if Bobby Witt isn't superhuman and if the supporting cast doesn't step up like you saw in the playoffs, honestly. I mean, even against us, the Orioles, they scored like, 3 runs in 2 games? That's pretty bad. And they got shown who a real team was by the Yankees. So going back to Cleveland, Jose Ramirez is the star. Stephen Kwan is the sidekick. Some other guys to watch in the lineup include Kyle Manzardo. He hasn't played a full year yet, but I don't think he's a rookie classified anymore. Young guy, hits lefty, big guy, has some pop. In theory, if Carlos Santana is playing at first and John Kinsey Noel is the other DH and maybe could play some outfield, he's right-handed, mind you. Manzardo's left-handed, so he'd probably play the majority. Then there's Lane Thomas, who they have him listed in center. He's not really a center fielder, but they don't really have a center fielder, so that's a whole issue. Anyway, good hitter, was with the Nationals, so I know of him through that. The rest of the team's just kind of solid. I mean, good defenders, contact, nothing exciting. That's why I listed them at third out of these 4. So I guess they'd be in the middle of the pack in the whole division. Obviously, Chicago is basically last in all these rankings, so there's no discussion. That's why I excluded them for this discussion, other than the little obligatory part at the beginning. As I said, with the rotation, Bybee, Lively, Williams, Ortiz, McKenzie. Bieber's injured. That's the big issue. If you can push McKenzie either to AAA or the bullpen as sort of a long reliever, that would be a massive boost. I also think if they could maybe have one more move in them, like go get Jose Quintana, that would make this look much better, because then you'd have, obviously, later on Bieber, Bybee, and then 3 of Lively, Williams, Ortiz, Quintana. That looks much better, at least on paper. There's always injuries. There's always form dips, performance variation, to use a baseball term. The rotation's fine, especially once Bieber comes back. Nothing spectacular. Not quite as good as a couple others here. Prospects, Chase DeLauder, Travis Bazzana. Might see them this year. Probably more likely for DeLauder. He has injury issues, though. Feet, things like that. Maybe hamstrings, maybe. That's Kwan, though. So, anyway. They're both good hitters, solid defenders. There's also Welbin Francisca, Jason Churio, Jackson's brother, Angel Henao. Those guys are further down, though, so don't think you'll see them. I want to say they're all infielders, middle infielders. Francisca might be at third, though. Anyway, the bullpen's where they shine. Clase, Smith, Gaddis, Sewald, Heron. It's nasty. Fangraph projections, though. Let's talk about that. I saw them projecting Cleveland at like 77 wins. That seems crazy to me. The bullpen, Jose Ramirez, Stephen Kwan, some decent enough hitters. That should be at least a 500 record. If not, they've won like 93 games last year. What is up with your projections? Come on now. On to Minnesota. And again, I'm not necessarily ranking them in terms of where I think they'll finish. I think that's fluid. Other moves could happen. Injuries happen. As we're getting to Minnesota, that's like the injury team. Here's what I'll say about Minnesota. If healthy, and that's always a massive if, they should win the division. I don't think that's too crazy to say. I'm going to start with the rotation. Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, Simeon Woods Richardson, Chris Paddock. With, let me see if I remember, Festa, I think it's David Festa, and, who was the other one? Oh, I'm forgetting his name now. No. That's okay. There's another pitcher. Y'all can remind me in the comments if you're Minnesota fans, because I know people get attached to their players. But anyway, they have like 7 starters. They're all right-handed too. Anyway, Solid rotation, probably the most complete in this division. I guess you could debate that, although I don't really think it's too debatable when I look at the sheet. I mean, high end, Scooble's better. Reagan's is better. Bieber's better, as long as he's healthy. But overall, I think this is the best rotation. Bullpen-wise, I've had them second as well. So, like I said, pitching, they should be the best, really, assuming health. That's irritating me. I can't remember the guy's name now. Louis Varland, that's his name. See, I didn't write that down. Anyway, so Duran, Jax, Sands, Coulomb, Alcala, Tompkins, Stewart. Is that what this is? It's ugly handwriting. Sorry about that. And then an extra lefty, Funderburk. That's the 8 I have written. Solid. My boy Coulomb came over from Baltimore, came back over. Again, perfect example, health-wise. Is his arm going to hold up? We never know. If not, then you have Funderburk, and that's basically it lefty-wise. So that is a bit of an advantage that goes off the window to have 2 solid lefties, 1 solid lefty, 1 average lefty. If the solid one goes out the window, though, that's an advantage gone. I'll touch on the lineup. Again, injury concerns, Correa with the legs, Buxton, Lewis in general. That's your third baseman, shortstop, and center fielder. I'm not the biggest Larinick fan. I don't think he defends well. I think he should be DHing. Bader struggles to hit sometimes. Although, if he's just hitting lefties, then he's passable. Brooks Lee, want to see him adjust and improve at the plate. Willie Castro coming up on his contract, so he should be motivated. Kind of a utility guy, hopefully with better health throughout the team. He'll be either in second base or left. I would put him in left personally, but that's just me. I would personally not have Bader play, barring. Anyway, I'm not saying what I would say, but I'm not saying what I would do rather. I'm just saying what's on paper and what I see. Ryan Jeffers, solid. Matt Wallner, solid. It's really just solid. I mean, if they're healthy, if they can stay healthy, they should win the division. Moving on. Oh, they do have prospects. I'll mention them quickly. Walker Jenkins, awesome. Emmanuel Rodriguez, again. Both of those are outfielders. Injury questions. What do you expect? Moving on, because it's already been 13 minutes. Got Kansas City, who I touched on a little earlier. Bobby Witt, out of this world. If not for Judge, goodness gracious. If not for Judge, could have won the MVP in the AL. I think he was better than Soto personally, but that's just me. Vinny Pasquantino, Salvador Perez, Michael Garcia, Jonathan India. I'm going by projected WAR, mind you, on some of these. I think the issue, Salvador Perez is aging. Vinny Pasquantino is awesome, but had that injury, so some of what he did last year was a little bit muted due to that. Michael Garcia is more of a defensive wizard than a hitter at this point in his career. Jonathan India, it's questionable if he actually has a position right now. I think Fangraphs has him at DH, which I don't know. I don't know if he produces enough as a hitter to be a DH like that, especially on this team. I think what is frustrating with this team is obviously, and again, I say this as someone who watched them against the Orioles and Yankees in consecutive series, they looked horrible offensively. They barely were manufacturing runs against us, and then they fell apart against the Yankees because they weren't able to quite stifle the Yankees' offense as much, and then obviously they can't produce runs. And what do they do to fix that? Nothing. They get Jonathan India, and that's it. I think if there's something that'll let them down, it'll probably be that. I do have them as the second best lineup behind Minnesota, which again I think suggests the weakness of this division. the lack of spending by these owners. I'm not going to complain about that anymore. I'm just going to mention it. I want to see how Lugo does in another season. I want to see if Reagans can stay healthy. The back end of the rotation is solid, though, with Waka, Lorenzen, Bubic. They've, I think, upgraded the bullpen a bit with Estevez. Urseg, I would assume, would still be the closer. Got a couple lefties. Prospect-wise, there's Jack Caglione. A couple catchers, which is, I think, a bit rare, although Chicago doing their stockpiling, clearing out all the talent at the major league level for prospects. They actually have a couple catchers as well. Those guys for Kansas City being Blake Mitchell and Carter Jensen. It's a question, though, because they go from a ton of losses. What pick did they get? I think they got like the 5th or 6th pick. But they lost like 100 games, and then they made the playoffs. So variance, what's the average? Will they regress? Was it an overcorrection? What's the true Royals team? How good can Bobby Witt be year to year? Will he be more like a 7-win player? In which case, they probably won't make the playoffs. But that's not bad. That's an awesome player. Finally, we have the Tigers. I'm going to touch on them for a couple minutes. Main guy, Tarek Skubal, lefty. Arguably the best pitcher in the league last year. Coming up on free agency. Not after this year, but I think the year after that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's right. Because he'll be 30 then, right? Or 29, one of the two. Anyway, Riley Green, best hitter, plays left. Kerry Carpenter, DH. Sometimes I confuse Carpenter and Meadows. I don't know why, but I guess they're both lefty, kind of bigger guys. Both technically play outfield, though Carpenter usually DHs. They signed Gleyber Torres, which, if he can drive the ball in that park, maybe more doubles than homers. I guess he started to do that with the Yankees anyway, so maybe that's not too big of an adjustment. It's not like he's playing in, what's an example? Oh, Cincinnati. It's not like he's playing in Cincinnati where everything goes for home runs. So he already had a relative down year, however many home runs he had, maybe like 20. So maybe that's not the biggest drop-off. Questions defensively, but will having either Baez or Sweeney at short, and then I suppose Keith at first, right? Yeah, Keith at first with, I guess, Ibanez or Carpenter, or not Carpenter, why do I keep saying Torkelson, sorry, as the backup. I suppose that could maybe help because the Yankees' infield defense wasn't amazing last year, in part due to Gleyber, but we'll see. Who else is there? There's Keith, there's Young, Sweeney. All those guys are relatively young. Catcher, Rogers and Dingler. Going back to the rotation, they signed Alex Cobb, brought back Jack Flaherty. I don't really like the Cobb signing personally, but if he's more at the back end with Flaherty, Job, Olsen, and then I guess one of Cobb and Mize, probably Cobb, and maybe Mize is in the bullpen or in AAA. I don't know. There's always injuries. Cobb's already injured. I thought that was weird, but it's depth. There's some quality. Bullpen, I'm not going to pretend I know these guys, so I'm not even going to necessarily name names. I think they're sound enough. They made it to the playoffs. The question I have, prospects. I'll go over the prospects real quick. Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal, both hitters. Max plays center. Might end up moving to a corner down the road, but we'll say he plays center. McGonigal could play second or short. Probably going to end up at second. They're awesome. I mean, I don't have data at the moment. I just have notes. So if you want to see the data, go look up the data. Thyron Lorenzo, again, mashes. Bryce Rayner, haven't seen him, but apparently he's good. So again, part of the question with the Tigers is Will Scooble stay healthy? Because if he does, he's amazing. Will the rest of the rotation pick up the slack? Because they had this sort of chaos thing going where basically they had guys opening and they'd have bullpen games, and it was just kind of crazy. Ideally, you'd have at least 4 guys consistently giving you 6 innings, getting up to 150 plus innings over the course of a season, preferably like 170. And will that offense produce enough? That's really what it comes down to. In this division, if you can produce runs and keep the runs off the board, I know that's obvious. I know that's the point of the game. You can win the division. Will all that come together, though? They have the manager, they have the ace, they have, I would say, a relatively established star, but still a young star enough. With Green, that's semantics. Some people use the word breakout, and it's like, this guy put up however many WAR and however many home runs. Is this really a breakout? Anyway, getting into words and how they're used. If you want, go ahead and rank these teams in the comments. Say which team's your favorite, which player you're which players you're looking forward to watching this season, who you think might break out, which prospects could come up, anything you want to share. If you got this far into the video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.